coming here. And do we have a quorum, sir?
We do.
Figured, pretty good attendance. So we'll go through and do self-introductions. We'll start over here with Dennis.
Dennis Harper, I represent Sonoma County Alliance.
Musa Abassi, representing San Jose Chamber.
Tom Banning, District 5, District 3.
Moving, Jerry Glazer, North Bay Electric Auto Association.
Jeff Blakesley, representing SOS Roads.
Okay,
Mark Hale, representing BIA.
Briggs Laka, Sonoma County Wine Growers.
Tom Conlon, representing Sonoma County Conservation Coalition.
Rick Lupton, League of Women Voters.
Mark Soylan, Supervisorial District 2.
John Bly, Engineering Contractors Association. We'll go to the back of the room here. Most of the staff back here. Hi. Okay.
Howard Gause, SCTCA. First party, SCTCA.
James Cameron. Eddie Cummins, Smart.
Okay,
Ross Clendenin, SCTCA, and I would just very briefly say, double check that your mics are on, because I think I had them all
They were
off.
off.
Thanks.
okay, mine's on, I know.
Who likes that?
And then I only see one person, other staff, I believe, up there, so
Adam Garcia, SCTCA.
thank you, Adam. All right. Thank you for introductions. Do we have any public comment on items not on the regular agenda? I don't think our public guy that's been coming to the last couple of meetings made it today. Yeah, you got something, Tom?
I just put into the record here, I noticed on the Board of Supervisors, April 15th meeting, there was an item added to the agenda as an amendment at the end, and it's $5.5 million to pay for repair of damaged roads. 2024 winter storms on West Side Avenue, Cabedale Road, West Soda Rock Lane, Woolwer Road, and Giovanetti Road. And that money's been transferred from the Tobacco Securitization Fund. I didn't know that that could be spent on roads, but it's apparently the citation is that this will be helping us achieve our resilient infrastructure pillar of our 5-year county strategic plan. And the goal associated with that is to continue to invest in critical road, bridge, bicycle, and pedestrian infrastructure. And the objective number 1 that is supposedly met by this expenditure is to continue to maintain road segments, including designated turnouts where feasible, increase efforts on vegetation removal and drainage features, and improve pavement condition in neighborhoods. And it just struck me that there's a pretty good chunk of money being transferred to a deal with our climate emergency. The fact that we get these big storms now that wipe out our road infrastructure. So just as bring this up to this committee is something we want to be thinking about as we move forward. To be sure that there is enough money to deal with our climate emergency at the same time as we try to do these other things that are in our strategic plan. Thank you for your indulgence.
Yeah, and on that note, James, I'd probably lean towards you a little bit because we talked a little bit about this the other day about an effort to put forward a climate change tax measure so that they kind of had their own pile of money to deal with the things that Tom's bringing up and so forth. That, I wouldn't say it died a death, but it lost traction is a better way to put it, about 3 or 4 years ago. Is that a fair, kind of around Go Sonoma Act time that they were talking about doing another climate change sales tax or environmental sales tax? I'm not sure what they were going to call it.
There we go. What John's referring to is the Regional Climate Protection Authority Climate Protection Initiative that started in 2022. It formed 3 different groups: a land and water group, a transportation group, and a buildings group. and had extensive public engagement to look at doing essentially some sort of climate tax. And the climate tax would be associated with the fact that the Regional Climate Protection Authority is a climate resiliency district as established by some legislation that Dodd passed called AB 852. Well, there is a strong desire to address climate, and there is a strong belief that there is a climate crisis within our county, and the polling showed that. What the polling also showed is that we're well below the 2/3 vote that would be required to pass such a tax. So with that being said, our ad hoc of the RCPA has been focused on other ways to fund climate, especially looking at RCPA's role as a coordination role and one in which we would coordinate for multi-jurisdictional grant applications, as well as pursuing the $10 billion climate bond to maximize the amount of dollars that come back to Sonoma County. So the funding strategy has very much shifted from potentially being a new tax.
Do you know what the percentage turned out to be? Was it over 50%?
Yeah, it was just over 50%. And I have those polling results if this committee is
The only
interested.
reason I mention that is that it could be converted, since it's just in the county, as a citizens initiative that would make the threshold.
Correct.
Thank you. That help flesh things out a little bit?
Yeah, I appreciate the discussion and
Yeah.
obviously it's something we want to be thinking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I would tend to agree. I mean, we keep having them. So rather than trying to figure out which way to pull the money out of, what pot to pull it out of, maybe the time is ripe to kind of bring that effort up and see what happens. Yeah.
But bear in mind, there is a state law about the maximum amount of sales tax that can be charged, and we're pretty much up against it.
I think it's 10 and
In fact-
a quarter, if I'm not mistaken.
On April 1st, the quarter cent for some sort of children's program went into effect. And Sebastopol was then over the limit. They had approved a % tax, and it has to be cut in
Yeah.
half until so really, I mean, some jurisdictions are worse than others, but it's something that several already in the county are at the limit.
What's the limit?
Perfect segue into Eddie's segment, I think,
Wait,
coming up.
okay, and a different topic, and staff probably knows this. There's a Senate bill,
Thank you, James.
and I'm not gonna make believe I remembered the number. For quorum for us, because we're an advisory board, if it gets passed, we can attend remotely without having it be a public location. I mentioned once before, I'm on the MTC Policy Advisory Council, and 3 times I've traveled to San Francisco, loving the ride on the train. But I get there and either the meeting can't be held because there's a remote location and internet didn't work, the person had a meeting, or something else showed up, and there's 20 people who traveled across the Bay Area to show up for the meeting, and the meeting doesn't happen. Or in the middle of the meeting, somebody drops off and then the meeting ends. So this bill will allow us to, because we're an advisory group, be remote, just say you're going to be remote and you don't have to be a public location. So we would have greater attendance. I was in Florida one time and I couldn't attend, and I was not about to make it a public location because if the internet went down, you guys would all be screwed. And I didn't want to do that.
Thank you. All right, seeing no further comment, we'll go on to administrative items, and we
Sorry,
are,
Mr. Chair, I do just see one hand up online, public comment.
I don't see it.
Sorry, I've got it on this computer here, but let me open up participants from Carol Taylor.
Okay.
I just want to point out, guys, that I'm here as a member of the public because I can't be here as a member of the committee on Zoom. So, and I've been doing that for several meetings now. It's the only workaround that I can find. But just to point out that it's already a problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol.
Okay, thank you. Don't have a solution, but thank you. Thank you for the problem. Awareness of it anyways. All right, so we're up to approval of the February 25th meeting minutes. Trust everybody's had a chance to look at our crack staff meeting minutes and They're probably perfect.
I'll move to it.
Excellent.
Why not? I'll second it.
And a second. Any corrections?
Abstention?
Okay. All those in favor of accept the meetings as supplied to us, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? And one abstention. Any other abstentions? Second abstention over here. Thank you. We are on to, oh, wait a minute. We have two separate.
We have marches.
Was that a cumulative motion and second that we just had?
No, but the second one was not minutes. It was just a meeting of the whole, I believe.
Exactly. We
That's correct. Those are the second one, March is presented just purely for information as we did not have a quorum.
So
But that's the
meeting info, not minutes.
Committee of the whole. So that's purely informational.
Do we need approval of those?
No.
Okay, very good. Thank you, guys. All right, measure items. We're on to Measure M project presentation, the SMART report. Eddie, you coming up without an introduction? We should have somebody talking about how.
The Rocky theme song or something.
Dun, 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 dun,
I think I know most everybody, but I'm Eddie Cummins. I'm Smart Train General Manager. And I'm not going to be able to see my slides, so if I clicking away or not
Wanna
clicking,
sit
let
over
me
here?
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
dude.
better. Yeah. Makes more sense. Here we go. That one's on.
You got the number one name change?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're probably the first ones to pull that off, huh? See that, James?
SETCA.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I wanted to just provide a SMART update, kind of what's going on and where we're at today. So I have a few things I wanted to talk about some of the recent initiatives, give you a ridership update, talk about some upcoming improvements we have in the pipeline, some construction photos, and then an update. Main reason I'm here today for the Petaluma North report, and then just a little bit about what's going on with the Windsor extension, and at the end, I'd be happy to answer any questions. So a lot of things have been going on the past couple of years. I won't go through this whole list, but just a few things that I highlighted up there that I thought this group may be interested in. We expanded our weekday service to 42 trips a day. We expanded our weekend service to 16 trips a day. We recently launched a microtransit pilot project at Airport and Larkspur Stations. That's that orange van that you see up there. Ridership has just been increasing every month. And so that's something that's really been a hit in the community, something that everybody really appreciates. We began our free fare pilot program for youth and seniors. Our board recently, at just our last meeting, I think that was last week or the week before, extended that for another year. So that's been very popular, and it's been amazing as to what's happened with ridership on that. You go back in time to when I presented to the board on that, and I honestly, I thought that we would see 5-10% bump, something like that in ridership. But what has happened is ridership of youth and seniors has doubled. It's up over 100%. It's been amazing. And so when you see some of our ridership numbers, a lot of that is attributed to the youth and seniors that are riding. And what's very interesting about it, obviously the youth are using it to get to and from school, but the seniors are riding midday, which is awesome because that's typically when a commuter rail has capacity, right? So that's been good. We completed construction and opened up the Petaluma North Station and the McGinnis Pathway in January of 25. But this is something that, everybody knows. Every transit agency in the country has something that looks like the first half or the left side of this chart. Everything's going right along pre-COVID and then just plummeted almost to nothing. What most transit agencies can't say is that they've been above pre-COVID ridership for the past 22 months. And that is something we are extremely proud of. We have the highest ridership recovery rate in the Bay Area. And depending on the month, we have the highest ridership rate of any commuter rail in the country. So we're back and forth month after month with Fort Worth. But whenever Windsor opens, you will hear me touting it all the time because when Windsor opens, we'll definitely be above Fort Worth at that point in ridership recovery. So something we're very excited about and very proud of. So looking at monthly ridership, we're almost done with April. I wish I had April's slide up here because this is going to be the first month ever in the history of SMART that we've had over 100,000 riders in a month. And that is going to become the norm. We're seeing about 4,000 riders a day and seeing somewhere around 2,000 on the weekends. And so things are just really, really good. But in the month of March, we had 96,100 riders. That was 43% higher than it was in March of 24. 43% year over year growth, which is awesome. And this is the first month I'm able to say that we have served over 1 million riders in the past 12 months. So again, it's just things are going very, very well for us right now. And we're just really excited to see the community utilizing this train. We have more in the pipeline. We'll be finishing up 3 pathway segments. That's 9 miles of new pathway. That'll be done in May of 25. Unfortunately, we were planning to have our event last weekend to celebrate the opening of that. We are having some issues with the way our signals talk to the traffic signals for Sonoma County. And so for whatever reason, every now and then the lights freak out and just start blinking. So until we are able to get that resolved, we didn't want to open up the pathways. But as soon as we figure that out, we'll make an announcement to the public that those are open. Also, we'll complete the Windsor extension by the end of May 25. More in the pipeline. We received $11.7 million in pathway grants. That was a $7 million federal Safe Streets for All. That's for Guerneville to Airport pathway. And then for Marin County, we received a $4.7 million TAM program RM3 grant for Hannah Ranch to Roland. And then the big one number up there, we were awarded $81 million of TIRCP money. That has us currently mobilizing on the Hillsburg extension. We are currently preparing progressive design build documents for that. That bid is out on the street now. So this can be very interesting because this will be the first time that we've delivered a project like this. This wasn't allowed in the past. There was recent legislation that made this possible. So we're interested to see how this is going to work for us. And if everything goes well, we plan to be picking up passengers in Hillsburg by the end of 2028. We're also continuing to work towards project development of the east-west alignment up to Sassoon. So right now we're working with Caltrans. They're working on a study. I've been told for months that that's almost done, that we should have a report. Still haven't received it, but it's in the pipeline. It's something we should be seeing before too long. Yes, sir.
About, what's the plan for the Cloverdale extension? Is it in your horizon?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's on the horizon. So the status is that it's an unfunded requirement, right? It's unfunded. We don't have the funding to do it right now. But we have made some headway on Cloverdale by getting it into Plan Bay area. I think this group is well aware how big of a step that is, because until you're in Plan Bay area, you're not allowed to compete for federal and some state funds. So getting that in there, that was a big lift, big help from MTC. But we got that in there. So now we're able to compete on equal ground for that. So just like we do with everything else, we'll be aggressively pursuing grants to fund beyond Hillsburg in the future.
As long as Musa asked that question, the question I keep asking is this, and there was when we were talking about the bill last year about integrating all the different services, which died. Part of it, our point here in Sonoma County was, Cloverdale wasn't covered for SMART and wasn't guaranteed. That was part of what people think they're going to get. One of the questions I have is, can we find a way to provide something like a BRT service that dovetails with the rail that just goes from the Cloverdale station to the stops in Guerneville and then comes right into Healdsburg, and we will give service to everybody, and we'll also start creating demand for a line that would go that far. That'd be a very expensive line.
Yeah, so you say it isn't guaranteed. It's, in my mind, it is guaranteed. We said we were going to do it, and I have every intention to deliver it.
Okay.
So you know what I mean? I just want to be clear about
Yeah.
that. It's not something that's a nice to have or something that we're thinking about doing. My board's been very clear. We're going to Cloverdale. And so that's what my team and I show up every day to make sure we're working to deliver. In order to do that, we have to get to Windsor, we have to get to Healdsburg, so on and so forth. But we're working to make that happen. I know they tried a bus line in the past. It didn't work well. That doesn't mean that you don't try it again. So I think that's something that we could have a conversation about in the future and look to see what that would look like and would it meet the needs of folks. I think once Hillsburg's open, that probably becomes, you know, a more viable option. But yeah, that's something that we can keep
Yeah,
on the
'cause
radar.
There's virtually no traffic on that highway and the buses could make the
Right.
trip. Your guys drive pretty fast, but.
Say that again?
I said your guys could drive pretty fast on some of the stretches. But the buses could do a reasonable job if it was just stopping at the stations and weren't. The answer I got back was, when I asked that question once before, was, well, there's service going. Well, the bus has about 60 stops along the
Yeah,
way.
that's
Let's
fair.
stop twice.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Eddie, I don't know how much time you get, so I don't know if you.
I can be here as long as y'all want me to be here.
Okay,
So, yeah.
I'll go ahead and ask a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you give us the 2-minute version of the conceptual? How are they getting to Healdsburg? Where will they cross the Russian River? Is the station over by the old Healdsburg lumber? That's where the train depot is going to be. That sort of.
Yeah, so
Roll.
right where the bridge is today, right, in Healdsburg, the railroad bridge, it'll be something very similar to that. The plan is to replace that bridge, but it will be very, very close to that location.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then right now, yes, we are looking at the depot area for the station.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
That-
Are you gonna go any further north than like Cloverdale? Are you gonna go to like the border of Ark County and Clear Lake, or even beyond that?
No, our intentions is the end of the line will be Cloverdale.
Okay.
I was curious about the east-west alignment. I don't know what that is.
So we have a freight rail that runs now at the freight rail, it is in Shellville. And so we go all the way up through American Canyon. We own that rail line through there. And so there is a study that is looking at what would that look like if it ran up Highway 37 and then up through Shellville and then on over to American Canyon and then would go all the way up to Sassoon. And so right now we run freight on that on Tuesdays and Thursday nights. A lot of people don't know that, they don't see it. But the train is sitting there at Novato. As soon as revenue service is over, the train pulls out on the main line and delivers to customers in Petaluma.
Yeah, Rick.
Are you finished with your report? I don't want.
No, not at all. Just getting started.
Well, I'll wait till you're done. then.
Okay. Let's see. So yeah, we got mobilizing on Healdsburg. I think I got all this, didn't I? And then we're working with Sonoma Marin transit providers to improve service along the 101 corridor. I'm not sure if this group's heard about it, but that's called the Mascot Study. And now just for some details on the Petaluma North and the pathway report. Obviously, this was made up of several different funding sources. Looking at the station first, it was funded by the city of Petaluma for $2 million. SCTA Measure M, $2 million. The State Transit Intercity Rail, TIRCP, was $9.5 million. And then AHSC grant was $895,000, bringing the subtotal to $14,416,184. The second one down there is the McDowell Boulevard Rail and Pathway Crossing. TRCP was $578,816. AHSC was $2.3 million. And then Smart Measure Q was $946,458, bringing the subtotal for that portion of the project to $3,825,274. And then next down is the Smart Pathway Great Redwood Trail, Petaluma to Pingrove and Roanoke Park to Santa Rosa. Roanoke Park and SCTA traffic impact fees was $1 million. SCTA Measure M from FY22 was $118,237. And then the state MTC active transportation, known as ATP, was $12,454,601. And then Smart Measure Q was $10,057,890, bringing that subtotal for the pathways to $23,630,728. While we were doing this project, we also conducted some paving for the city of Petaluma. They paid for that directly. That was $886,712. Very happy with the performance of Petaluma North Station. We opened to the public on January 10th. First 3 months of service, that thing has really taken off even more than I expected, and I'm very optimistic about things. It's currently about 6% of our system-wide boardings, 303 boardings a day there on average. And it's similar to the ridership already at Civic Center, downtown Novato, Rohnert Park, and the airport. Higher than the stations at Santa Rosa North, Novato San Marin, and Novato Hamilton. But here's the kicker. When we put that in, we really didn't know what was going to happen to ridership at Petaluma downtown because we really didn't know how many people drove from the west or from the east side to the west side and parked at the parking lot, got on the train. But boardings have gone up at Petaluma downtown. And so all the ridership growth that has come from Petaluma North is all brand new. It's just new, it's different. Now, I will tell you that one thing I know is happening that we didn't anticipate. I was on the train a while back and I was talking to a lady and I boarded at Petaluma North with her. And the story she was telling me, I said, well, where are you headed? She's like, oh, just to downtown. And I was like, you're going from Petaluma North to Petaluma downtown? She's like, oh yeah. She's like, it's faster than driving and I don't have to find parking. So I think that there's a lot of people that are doing that, which maybe people were riding or, we lost some riders that were driving over there and parking, but now they're doing that back and forth trip across town. And we've continued to see those boardings. So anyway, it's just been very interesting. Just a few construction photos. As you guys know, there's been a lot going on at SMART. We had the Windsor project. We had the McGinnis Pathway. We got the Petaluma to Pingrove and the Rohnert Park to Santa Rosa Pathway. The lower left corner there's when they were building the station at Petaluma North. And then the undercrossing over on the lower right side, that's the undercrossing for at near Windsor Station for the kids, high school kids to be able to cross the tracks. And then, aren't these great photos?
They're wonderful.
So the photo on the left is looking south and the one on the right is looking north through the roundabout. These are wonderful photos, something we're very, very excited about. Windsor Extension, it's a new station right at the depot building, Transit Center. It's a new parking lot. We'll have 125 stalls there. We'll have free daily parking, $5 overnight parking. Part of this project's also the pathway that'll go from Airport Boulevard to the Windsor Roundabout. This, believe it or not, this is my wife's favorite thing. She thinks this is the best part of the whole project. She loves the pathway. And then, of course, the pedestrian crossing that I showed you some pictures of the construction of that. That's connecting the high school to the pathway. And then, of course, the very complicated and complex train control system. Major progress, all the tracks in place, the pathway is paved, the station shelters are built, station parking lot is paved, all the construction stuff is done. Right now, it's all about the train control systems. We're doing testing. That's going very well. We're about done with that. We finished up for the most part on Saturday. Now we just have to conduct all the paperwork. The plan is to begin pre-revenue testing next Monday. And what we'll do then is we'll run all 42 trips all the way past airport to Windsor. All the way to Windsor. And we just won't be carrying passengers. Everything goes well. We get everything signed off. The plan is to start picking up passengers in late May. Next steps, complete system testing by the end of April, complete simulated service by the end of May. And like I said, we'll begin passenger service at that point. It's been a long time since trains have been in the Windsor area, so we're just reminding people some common sense train safety things. Never walk on the railroad tracks. It's illegal and dangerous. Only cross the tracks at designated railroad crossings. Always wait for the bells and lights to stop and the gates to rise before crossing. Never stop your car on the tracks. Stay alert and don't be distracted by cell phones or headphones. And I'll foot stomp that last thing. Don't be distracted around trains. And so here we are. You can't see it up at the top there, but June 13th is when we are planning the big celebration. Hope everybody's able to make it out. For those of you that came to the station grand opening at Petaluma North, we had almost 600 people show up for that event. So I would anticipate we're going to have well over 1,000 people at the Windsor grand opening. So hope everybody can make it out for that.
Is that going to be afternoon or middle of the day?
I think it's at 1:00, 1:30. Mhm. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Greg?
I have two. I heard you talking before about the butter and eggs
Mhm.
event in Petaluma. I went to it on Smart from Rohnert Park. When I got to the station, there were an enormous number of people waiting to get on the train. So I was quite alarmed when the train came in and there didn't appear to be any room on the train. Somehow or other, we all squeezed in.
Yeah.
And then we had to stop twice more before we got to downtown Petaluma. Going home, it was pretty crowded, but not as bad. And I think that was a 3-car train. I didn't,
It was.
yeah. So what I'm wondering is, can you run 4-car trains?
No. So 4-car trains will not fit on the platforms.
I see.
So 3 cars is the limit, but what we are going to do next year, and I made this decision about 10:30 Saturday morning of Butter and Eggs Day, we will run extra service next year for that event.
Yeah. I was
It
going to
was,
suggest that.
it was crazy. We carried over 4,200 people on 16 trips. So if you do the math on that, that's almost 300 people per trip. So almost all the trains were packed that day. You never know what you're going to get. You know, if you look back at the previous year, you know, we carried like 2,400 people. This year it was over 4,000. So demand is there. And when demand is there, I'll provide more service. So that'll be the plan next year to run. We haven't built that service plan yet, but we'll definitely run extra trips next year, especially during those key times of when people are trying to get to Butter and Eggs and when they're trying to go home.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's a good idea. My other question is about your free fares
Mhm.
for seniors and youth. I was zoomed into the board meeting last time when you were discussing that and the extension for a year. Basically, the philosophy that I heard, which I would like to subscribe to, is it's important to get people on the train, even if they're riding for free. It looks good. It looks good to the other people who are riding the train. It looks good to the people who are standing beside the tracks, watching it, and like to complain about all the empty seats going by.
Yeah, I don't hear that one anymore, but yeah. Yeah, now it's about capacity problems with the emails I get about being overcrowded.
Yeah.
So I prefer that problem.
So as I understand it, your fare box recovery is very, very low, like something around 5%.
6.
So if you're getting that little from the fare box anyway, why not just make it free for everybody?
Well, that creates a whole list of other issues. Free fares across the board, I don't think I would recommend that. You know, I will tell you, you know, I don't know if I said this during the meeting or not, but I think at some point as, you know, knowing that we're limited to 3 cars, right? I'm not sure the board will extend the free fare beyond this next year, right? So if you have free fare for everything, you could run into some serious capacity issues. The one thing that really interests me though, is I get questions all the time about Smart's fare box recovery rate. However, if you go look at at all the bus, they're all similar.
Yeah.
They're all 6, 7, 8%. Smart's right in the middle. We don't have the lowest. And I always just find that fascinating that Smart gets questioned about the fare box recovery rate, but nobody else gets that. The highest that we have in the area is Golden Gate. They're at 24%. So it's not a big moneymaker, but I think that getting the folks out and the strategy that we put in place was not so much about the public perception of it. It's about what I call investment per passenger mile. So you've got a sunk cost of running that train, right? And so if you divide that by the number of passenger miles that you're taking off the road, that gives you a number. The more people you have on there, the further they're going, the less you're investing in each one of those passenger miles. Something that I didn't have up here, but we're on pace to carry 1 million riders this year. The average smart rider rides 22 miles. That means we're taking 22 million miles off of Highway 101 just in this fiscal year. So when you look at, boardings, and you look at, like each one of the transit agencies, they may carry more people, but nobody carries more passenger miles than SMART in the North Bay. And so making sure the trains are full, making sure that it's a wise investment, people are using it, that's really what it's all about. And I think it's been a good decision. I think that our board made a good decision there, and I think the community appreciates it. Mhm.
Jerry first. and then
Yeah,
Lisa.
I have a couple of comments and a couple of questions. One comment is that I've noticed the passengers getting on and getting off inside the county or just between the two counties. And what SMART has done more than the buses ever did, has integrated the communities. So the populated areas now, flow back and forth, and it's becoming better and better. I'm hoping the mascots will start recognizing we need to feed SMART more and more, because one of the comments I get from passengers, I carry my MTC cards with me and
Mhm.
talk to people. They talked about like Santa Rosa Station. Seniors can't find a place to park. You made all the parking lots free that you have. but
Yes.
That one you don't have.
Yes.
And I had the one gentleman I spoke to with that, who's taking SMART on a regular basis, said, I turned to him and I said, the bad part was you just complained about the parking. I said, why is it that you need parking in the first place? That's the problem we should be solving, not the problem of making sure you have free parking to get to the train. It should be that you don't need parking to get to the train. And I go to my meetings in San Francisco and I take SMART and I drive the SMART. Because the head wait for the bus from my home is 90 minutes and it never connects with SMART. So it would add an extra 2 hours of commute in each direction. That's part of the comments.
Can I just suggest that we keep the questions a little?
Yeah.
shorter?
Okay, now I get down to the questions. One of the problems I also noticed was tourists and payments, because we're all taking Clipper. Tourists don't know how to deal with that, and Clipper's not easy. Your folks have been very good. They said, get on the train.
Mhm.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
We'll take you to where you need to go to. Questions, and one of the questions I have is, when will we start seeing later times? Because that would be really interesting. And I think that's actually the only question. And tourists is the other one I'd like to see addressed, because we're getting tourists and we'd like to funnel the tourists that they would love riding the train.
Yeah. So a couple of things. Number one, if you're on MTC, you probably know Clipper 2 is on the way.
Yeah.
When that comes in, tourists will be able just to tap a regular credit card and hop on and pay their fare. So that'll be helpful in the future. Also, SMART has an app that people can use. So a lot of times people that don't ride on a regular basis, they just download our app and pay their fare that way. So that's an option. And then one thing about the bus, I agree with you. We need to get better at that first and last mile. I said, when I arrived, and I still say it today, we've made some headway, but still first and last mile is a real challenge. One big thing that did happen, the Sonoma County bus that goes from Sebastopol into the downtown now stops near the downtown station. So that's a start, and that's a move in the right direction. What was your, late night service. So that is one of the things that the mascot study's looking at. So let's see how that pans out. That is on our radar. You may be aware, a couple of years ago, one of the initiatives we implemented was a late night service. It did not do well. I rode that train several times and maybe there was 25, 30 people on it. But again, ridership is different today than it was 2 years ago. The demand is different. People are moving differently. So that's definitely on my radar of having something later night in the near future.
Just one comment on fares also. I'm a senior, we're all gray hairs here. I don't mind paying the fare. The place I'd like to see the free fares continue is for those under 18, because it develops a habit that they follow as they
Yeah.
become adults.
Yeah, thank you. I agree.
Good point. Melissa?
The question, the operating cost, how do you cover it, like the other 95%? What are the sources?
So you have Measure Q, and then you also have other state and federal funds that come in that help fund the operation. So Measure Q right now, I think about 65% of Measure Q goes into direct operating. So we use Measure Q for basically three things right now. Number one, operating. Number two, paying debt that we have, debt service. And then number three, we use some of that money as local match and filling in the gaps in some of our projects to make sure things get completed. So that's where the Measure Q dollars are going.
So the follow-up question, what's the plan for extending or renewing?
Great question. So that's on my board's radar. I presented a couple of months ago to the board, told them, hey, if you want to think about 2026, excuse me, now's the time to start doing work. The board directed me to start doing some of that work. Staff and I put together some information. We took a draft full text measure to the board with an expenditure plan last month, or I guess this month. And then we also presented polling results. Believe it or not, we are polling at 73% for a 30-year measure. We also tested to see what until repealed by voters look like. It polled at 66%. So, we've made a lot of progress. We're moving in the right direction. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't thrilled to see that 73% support. Mhm.
A couple bike path questions. The Guerneville to Windsor segment, can you briefly discuss how that's routed? Is that going to be along the track or
So,
make use of existing roads?
so no, it'll be its own pathway next to the track. It's Guerneville to Airport.
Or airports?
Yes.
Okay. And one other question. I rode recently from Santa Rosa to Rohnert Park on the path.
That's not open.
It wasn't barricaded it was on Easter.
Uh-huh.
It was not barricaded, but the push
Uh-huh.
lights did not
Uh-huh.
work.
What did not work?
The crossing lights.
Right.
Were all
That's-
boarded up.
That's why it's not
There were
open.
There were no barricades and we were not the only people
Uh-huh.
there. So,
Okay, go ahead.
honest. My question's on fencing. I can see why you have to put a fence between the path and the track,
Mhm.
but the outboard fence were intermittent. Is there some sort of federal rule that governs what you have to do on that?
Yeah, I don't know if that has to do, I would have to look at that, at the specifics of it. I mean, it could be a landowner on the other side. It could be something that's sensitive on the other side that they want to protect and keep people out of, but I'm not 100% sure on that, exactly what regulation it is or the details associated with where you put a fence and where you don't.
So just for the record, we passed several dozen Easter riders on that day.
We know, I know people are out there, but yeah, I hear it all the time. People tell me how much they're appreciating the pathway that's not quite open yet.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Just a suggestion for staff, if there's members of this committee that want to attend the June 13th ribbon cutting, perhaps you could send a request for RSVP out, and if we wanted to, we could kind of sit in a group so they see what the CAC folks look like. That might be kind of interesting for us. I'd love to go to that.
Yeah.
Love to see a lot
Great,
of
it's
us
going to be a party.
attend that.
We can certainly send a reminder.
Thank you.
As for seating, I don't know, it might be standing room only.
That's okay. That's okay, Tim.
Real quick. Hi, sorry, I missed it. I was listening on Zoom. Good to see you again, Eddie.
Yeah, good to see you.
Did you see a car getting towed out there or anything?
Yeah, it said Soyland and it was a ribbon.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay, not a big deal. But it was electric, so that was good. Eddie, this might shock you. I have some ideas for you. One is I love going on Smart, and it reminds me of when you were a kid and you went on the airplane and you got the little wings from the captain because you were very special. So one thing we could do for some marketing to get people interested, again, here's a neat little sticker. It says Ride Transit. That's kind of exciting. Ride with Pride. I think it's from you guys here. whoa, Sonoma Valley wine, 200 years, that's one of ours. So if Smart would have those for the kids and people, hopefully not sticking them obviously on the train, but people like to put them on water bottles. Kids like Tom Conlon over there, who's, yeah, it's cool stuff.
What's in that water bottle?
And like some Smart merch and stuff like that, I think would work for selling the story of Smart. A couple more things, I'm sorry. The pathway, I love it. I'm a huge fan of it. I would never go on it if it wasn't open. I assiduously stay off of it. However, if I was on it and noticed that there's an opportunity for adopt a pathway programs similar to the highway, I'm sure you already have that in mind. But for example, Shiloh to Mitchell, which I have not been on, could be sponsored by Russian River Brewing Company. Airport Business Park could sponsor one. After Soylent gets their car back, they could sponsor a segment. So it would be kind of a neat thing,
Excellent.
right? It'd be a neat thing.
Statute of limitations, yeah.
And the two final things are wayfinding. I really do appreciate the new wayfinding. We need a little more that brings people to the pathway. I have people in my neighborhood who still don't know the pathway's there. And, you know, I live 2 blocks from it. And then also a paid opportunity or a revenue source would be wayfinding from the pathway to various businesses that, like in Sonoma, we had that around the plaza.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't, I don't know if it would be on your property or adjacent to your property and how it would work, but I definitely see that as an option for awareness. So thanks.
Great.
Sorry I came in
Yeah.
late.
No, it's great. Thank you.
Great ideas. All right. And hopefully the statute of limitations for trespassing on a closed pathway. Maybe he can give you a get out of jail free card. I'm hoping something.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, quick question.
Regarding the eastward extension.
Yeah.
What's your coordination with State Route 37? You know, like, I always envisioned, you know, like rail, you know, along 37. Not only, you know, for freight, for passengers to connect with the national rail system.
Yeah, so it is all connected. We are, SMART is a part of the Highway 37 committee. So we're at all those meetings and it is in coordination. Like I said, we're working directly with Caltrans on this. You know, they're going to look at several different things, right? They'll look at the existing alignment that would go up and around Shellville and then on into American Canyon. They'll look at one that would do a kind of like a shortcut and cut across instead of going all the way into Shellville and making that long turn. They would cut across, and then they'll probably also look at an option that would be parallel to 37 into Vallejo. Now, I get asked all the time where I think that's going to land. I think that it'll probably be the existing alignment, just whenever they start to look at everything of what the cost of the project's going to be versus what the ridership is going to be. I think it'll be probably higher ridership into Vallejo, right? But the price tag for that, you know, Causeway with the rail all the way is going to be a hefty price tag. So time will tell. You always go into these studies with an open mind and look at what the details are and what things look like, but that's the plan right now. But yeah, it's all part of the Highway 37 committee.
But my question, rail will be part of the Highway 37?
I think it's going to be on its own facility, so to speak, right? I mean, nothing's done yet.
It's its own facility, you know. I see rail over all the world almost like the median usually. You have the rail line.
Right.
Freeways on, you know, like local street and so on. If you are, you know, building State Route 37 as an elevated, you know, highway or freeway, makes sense, you know, to integrate, you know, rail into it.
Yeah, that option is out there of it being on its, you know, being, you know, whether it's like in the center of the highway piece and going up and over. But it's based on the way things are going right now, I would anticipate that it will be right next to it. So you will have the highway piece here and then the rail line would be right next to it. But obviously, if you build the road up, you're going to have to bring the railroad up as well. We already flood right there at 37 in Novato. So, you know, we're always out every time it rains. If we get a big rain, we're usually flooded out for a couple of weeks there. So that area definitely needs to be elevated. So yeah, it's all being looked at. And then of course, you know, depending on whether the alignment would cross over Highway 37 and continue to go on up towards Shellville, or if it stayed parallel, then I think if it did stay parallel all the way to Vallejo, then I think it would be a very similar facility there.
But the current tracks, can they, carry passenger rail now?
Say that again.
Can the current tracks, carry passenger?
No, it would be low speed. No, that railroad's older and, it's good for running freight. It's fine for that, but I wouldn't want to put passenger rail on it. No.
So there's the 37 meeting coming up here shortly, and I was going to suggest that if you haven't had a chance to attend those, they're worth attending. They've been going on now for a decade, I
Mhm.
believe. But these things that you're bringing up are parts of the considerations that they talk about at those meetings. And that next meeting is,
On,
okay, thank you.
Thursday, the 1st. Yep.
Eddie, thank you very much.
Thank you.
for coming. 43% ridership increase year over year. That's a pretty good
good.
thing to be proud of.
stuff.
Good
Impressive
stuff.
stuff.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you. How are you? Good.
All right. Shauna, you are up on the quarterly project. Go Sonoma. Yeah, that one. We cut into your time a little bit, sorry.
So this first item is just as a reminder, Go Sonoma is a little bit different than Measure M in that there weren't prescribed projects in Go Sonoma. Go Sonoma is a competitive program. So as an attempt to ensure that we are tracking progress, development progress on each of those Go Sonoma projects, one of the requirements is for anyone who has been awarded Go Sonoma funding, competitive funding, to provide us with quarterly updates. We have a fact sheet for each one of the projects that was selected for Go Sonoma funding, and each of the project sponsors provides a quarterly update on each one of those projects. So we can track if estimates have changed, if the scope has changed because estimates are coming in much higher, that sort of thing. So we're keeping track of that progress in attempt to deliver the projects. So all of those fact sheets are available to the members. They're available as a link in your agenda packet because your agenda packet was already 100 pages long, and we just thought we'd try to keep those numbers down. You're welcome to check them out. I would be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
And I believe we. Can I start?
Sure.
I believe we started collecting, the Go Sonoma.
We did.
Starting this month, right?
April 1st.
Tom next.
Thank you. And yes, I did click through, and that is a big file because it's got lots of maps and pictures in it, so it took a while to load. And I just wanted to note that this process is working in
Great.
that I'm engaged with my city in Sonoma about the projects that are there. We've run into a budget constraint, and I still have some questions that aren't quite answered, but these come out every quarter, so it keeps us on task. These programs are these designs are so far out in the future, and conditions change. In our city, we're building we're slated to build a bicycle path to a school that there's been some question about the possibility that the school might close. So how do you anticipate that at the beginning of the transportation funding cycle? You can't. So how flexible are these project scopes, and are there any, if we award a competitive program, is there any penalty to the awardee if they fail to achieve everything they said they were going to do? Are we tracking that? Are we thinking about that as we compare to the other jurisdictions who may be doing a better or worse job? How do we deal with that as we are administering our competitive program?
Well, thank you for asking. It's a good question. And we did anticipate that. So I think it's 4.19 is the policy in the strategic implementation plan about amendments to projects. So should a project run into an issue such as a significantly larger estimate than they were anticipating, then they can come to SCTCA staff and say, we have an issue, and provide us with the prescribed listed information that is in the policy that we have determined is a reasonable amount of information for us to determine whether or not, as staff, whether or not that is a major scope change or a minor scope change. If it's a major scope change, then it will need to go to the board, and the board will have to approve that scope change. If it's a minor scope change, then that is at the discretion of staff. And so we are in direct contact with the City of Sonoma staff and are talking about that very thing right now.
Right, so I bring that up because I think everybody who has a project in your jurisdiction that you represent or live in, just, be aware, because this is our local program. This is where we have money to do stuff locally, and it leverages other money too. So it can be
And
very
it's a
powerful.
competitive program, so it's only fair that you deliver what you say you were going to deliver. It's not like the 20-year measure where everybody had a prescribed project and you just came to us when you were ready to deliver it.
Right.
This is different. This is competitive, and we want to make sure that the projects that are moving forward are going to deliver what they have said they were going to.
And even though I made a reference to Doge in my meeting with the city today, I'm told not to make that reference often because it's not, apparently not popular, even though I subscribe to government efficiency across the board.
Yeah, Jerry. Me?
Yeah.
Okay. I did send you a note because part of what I was looking at the scoring criteria.
That one's another item, but
Okay.
yes.
Okay, I'll wait till that item.
Okay.
Okay, fine. But I did incorporate all of I thought it was, because Drew wasn't, so it wasn't inside the packet, so I pulled all those in, all of the projects, and started looking at them. And I had a couple of questions. And one of them was, I was looking at the Cloverdale sidewalk, and I go, one of the things that has been bothering me is how much everything costs. I was looking at the Cloverdale sidewalk, that's costing $1,700 a running foot for a sidewalk. And I look at the other projects. Part of what I'm trying to figure out is why things have ballooned so much. And putting in a sidewalk at $1,700 a linear foot, running foot, just seemed like a lot of money. The other thing that I had a couple of notes on, one was there's a wayfinding project, and I don't know when we'll see the Bay Area Regional Wayfinding Notation Standard, and would we incorporate that in all of the wayfinding projects that we have in the county as well, even if it's, maybe for bike paths, whatever else? I'm sure they're addressing those. And the last question, or actually a comment, was I saw in Sebastopol, since I live there, the bike path on Highway 12 through that one segment, which is very close to my home. I know there was another proposal for a bike path through the area that wasn't on the roadway. And the reason that it was dismissed was it would cost $3 million. And it was for a longer distance than this is going to be along Highway 12, which will probably end up being about 2 feet wide. Because what's there right now is 2 feet wide. I can't imagine we get much more. Did anybody bring that other proposal up at the time, or we just saw the city said they want this and that's where it went?
So would you like me to answer them in order or
No,
back to front?
yeah, and you can wave your hands too and say, forget it. 'Cause I have a whole bunch of other comments on it. That's the problem with incorporating them. Yeah.
Okay, so the first question was about Cloverdale
Yeah.
and their gap closure project. Their gap closure project is trying to, so many years, part of the problem is that, several of these smaller jurisdictions have been struggling to deliver something that's been in their plan for a very, very long time. And so costs have escalated significantly since the original intent. And there was a project that City of Cloverdale wanted to do that was safe routes to schools oriented. And they had so much trouble delivering a federal grant that it got necked down because they had trouble delivering it because they ran into right-of-way issues with one of the parcel owners. So there are any number of things, but this was, the gap closure was to finish a project that has been in the plan for 2 decades. So the estimate is the estimate. We are finding the estimates are going down right now, but that could change at any moment. We just don't really know the nature of that.
Include buying right away?
Not in the estimate that Go Sonoma will fund. I believe the funding is only for construction, but doesn't change that there's a much larger project there that is, will take some time. I believe that portion goes up to and or over a creek, and that can also be very expensive. Let's see, there was a second question in the middle, and then there was a
Regional wayfinding.
oh, regional wayfinding. That's something that's coordinated. I mean, certainly it's coordinated through the planning, our planning side, and with a lot of effort going on. And I know that, our planning advisory committee and the transit advisory committee all are making big efforts to make sure that that gets incorporated. So the various jurisdictional staff are very aware of that and will be incorporating it once it's finalized. And then the third question was about Sebastopol and Highway 12. And I don't recall off the top of my head all of the projects that were submitted by Sebastopol, but as a general rule for the first cycle of the SCTCA, it was SCTA funding at the time, was that each jurisdiction was to submit their top 5 priority projects. And those were determined at a council and staff level amongst the jurisdictions. And so the intent is for them to do their own public outreach and engagement so that they are getting input from each of the communities about what their priorities are, and then those priorities then come to us. That is the intent of how that is supposed to work. Sometimes it doesn't always go to the council first. Sometimes it comes from staff, and then when they go to approve the projects, then council is surprised by that. So we're trying to fix that, the way that happens now, so that all staff is taking their projects to council prior to submitting them to us.
Thanks.
Okay.
Jerry brings up a good question on the cost of things, being a former contractor. And I would say the easy answer is it's death by 1,000 paper cuts, because there's not a singular thing that you can point to, but there's 1,000 things that you can point to that all make the costs astronomical compared to where they were 30 years ago. I was asked by Ariel Kelly the other day, co-chair of your trustees, to consider asking for a presentation in front of the trustees at some point to talk about, from the contractor's perspective, what's going on with all this grant funding and the projects, because they don't ever hear that. And she was kind of asking for some input there. I don't know what form that would take, but I'm sure I could put a representative, 2 or 3 people together I think the board would find that very entertaining, or very
I'm sure our executive director would
very
be
much
happy to talk to you about it.
well-valued information, let's put it that way, yeah. Because there's certain things that as they award these projects and so forth, that are directly related to what the costs are, and most of it has to do with time. They're all going up every year. The faster we get them out and get them built, the cheaper they're going to be, for the most part. Thank you, Shauna.
You bet.
Brett, you're up. All right.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Share, Brett, and I'll get you, would you like to share it with us?
Yes.
Excellent.
Sourced components.
Your little summary sheet didn't make it to the package?
Did it not? I'm sorry. I have it with me, so I'll give the presentation and then we can email it out.
Great. Should be able to share now, Brett.
Okay. Okay, perfect. All right, so this presentation is on the March 2025 financials for Measure M and Go Sonoma. This month there was the standard balance sheets and cash flow reports for both Measure M and Go Sonoma, as well as the latest sales tax projections and newsletter from HDL. I believe there'd been some interest in that last meeting. So they're included this time. Revenues for the month of March were $2,436,091, and year-to-date revenues are now $20,141,813. And expenses came in low in March with $241,429, with year-to-date expenses of $15,819,436. And Measure M and Go Sonoma have a cash balance of, I'm sorry, Measure M has a cash balance of $80,820,068. So of those March revenues, the majority, $2,320,356 for sales and use taxes, with $115,734 in interest. And so as you see here, our 2025 taxes received in March were down 0.95% from where they were in 2024, which is actually a little better than year-to-date earned, which is down 1.32% from where we were last year. So that looks good. And year-to-date received of $23,975,000 is down 1.76%.
So what's the difference between earned and received?
The year-to-date earned are the ones that took place in September forward. They're the ones that are actually counting as fiscal year 24-25, because the sales taxes we receive in March were the ones that were collected or counted for January. So our first two payments in July and August are fiscal year 23-24 dollars, because they're for the months of May and June of last year. So really for this year, for fiscal year 24-25, it's the $18,434,000.
That give us an idea on how the sales, taxes they are going through the fiscal year, right?
Correct, for this fiscal year. All right, so our March expenses were $135,961 were consultant services, $56,812 were contributions to other governments, and then there were $43,371 in staff time. And there will be larger payments next month for the LSR and LBT payments, which went out at the end of April. All right, Go Sonoma had still a quiet month. There were no revenues in March. And so the year-to-date revenues are still that $14,583 from last month. And there were $78,088 in expenses, with year-to-date expenses now $612,337. And Go Sonoma is sitting on a cash balance of $1,182,245.
I don't understand why there was no revenue in March, because the tax was still being collected for Measure M.
I'm sorry, these are the Go Sonoma financials, and so the Go Sonoma taxes have not started yet. So the small number of revenues there are mostly interest earnings.
Oh, I see. I
Yep.
thought you were doing both.
Sorry, this one is the Go Sonoma. I'll go back a few slides. Here, the $2,320,000 were the Measure M sales taxes. Yeah. All right, and so for those March expenses, $44,937 were staff time and $33,150 were consultant services. All right, and that's the end of my slide, my presentation.
He single-handedly got us back on schedule.
That's right.
You are the man.
I think I have a generous allotment of 10 or 15 minutes. It does not usually take that long.
Take credit. It's
That's
so
right.
seldom given. Yes, Tom.
You mentioned that the staff time was roughly split
Mhm.
between the two measures. How will that change over the next quarter? Do you expect most of the money will shift over to Go Sonoma, and when will that start to occur?
I think David could answer more, but I believe for the current period, we're planning still split staff time for both programs.
I imagine you've got in your time cards, you got to put your time to a particular line item in the budget. So
Yes.
that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, so currently for specific projects, we charge either to Measure M or Go Sonoma or a number of other codes. Starting with next fiscal year, as Measure M is now ended tax collection, we're gonna be phasing out our charging to Measure M essentially over the next few years. Most of our staff time is charges to Police, our Measure M staff time comes in Measure M admin. We're gonna draw that all down at the end of the next fiscal year. We'll still have some Highway 101 work over the next few years, but starting with fiscal year 26, 27, we'll be shifting pretty much entirely to charging measure-related staff time to Go Sonoma.
I guess, and that's going to be a pot of money that sits out there for quite some time because the Measure M funds are so constricted. It occurs to me as we started off the meeting with my comment about the tobacco securitization fund being used as a source to fund some things. Interesting idea that I don't know if we can do we can do inter-fund transfers between that existing Measure M balance and other Measure M legitimate obligations, but we can't transfer it outside of Measure M completely like they did with the tobacco settlement, or can we?
We have done it from Measure M to Go Sonoma, so we're currently doing that right now to refund some of the Go Sonoma programs and
So
projects.
from Measure M to Go Sonoma.
We haven't looked at going outside.
That's
might be
another.
A little too far.
I'm not meaning to breach good governance here by bringing it up, just noting that money seems to flow around this county in interesting ways, so.
And I have seen that done at one of my prior roles where money was loaned to an outside agency and paid back over time.
Right.
With a specific interest rate, kind of like we're doing right now with Measure M Go Sonoma, but somebody would have to research further.
Right, like,
I'm just loaning the money to Go Sonoma and Go Sonoma will pay it back.
Correct.
I think as a governance perspective, I'd like to, having brought it up, we'd want to be sure we keep that money targeted to our SCTCA goals and objectives. And that would be my representing the public. I think we need to make sure we don't let that money end up being spent on, I don't know, police and fire and the other things that tend to consume budgets in governments.
Does that ever get talked about at the board level?
Not to my knowledge.
Could we perhaps throw something in as a request for their agenda to talk about that, or no?
To consider loaning funds outside the measure to other
Well, I
types
think
of
to
departments.
go ahead.
John, excuse me.
Dennis,
You can't, first of all, the tax measure is for only the programs within Measure M. You cannot go outside of that. That was the mandate. And so we can loan it and be paid back, but it can't be used for other sources. So it's those programs only listed within Measure M that can be used.
Was your question something about loaning it, or are they keeping accurate track of what's been loaned so we get it back? I
mean, I agree, Dennis, that's what Measure M
That's
says.
what the measure is.
And so we are obligated to follow what the voters approved. And we've done that with the board decision to allow the transfer to Go Sonoma for those specific board approved activities as well. The thing I'm wondering is, could something happen within Go Sonoma if a program were to be added to the Go Sonoma programs that would allow us to deal with some of the other unfunded things we have in the county that are transportation related or climate related? Maybe that would be one of the ways to leverage that currently unallocatable pool that is going to be.
First of all, there's a lot of projects within Measure M in the case study. You just take Santa Rosa, you have your Farmers Lane extension. So there's plenty of projects that were named in Measure M that are still unfunded, that have been uncompleted. So, and there's a list of those still in the initial ballot measure. So there's no problem of finding places to put the money that was already approved by the taxpayers.
Understood. I'm just mentioning, while it sits there, we might want to be able to use it for have it come loan back to Measure M for those ultimate projects. So to the extent that that's possible, I would just hope people would think about what might be possible. Since our hands are tied on those other Measure M specific projects.
And Go Sonoma is actually paying interest on the money that was loaned to it from Measure M.
Correct. So essentially, the interest that is paid is the same amount that the Measure M would have earned had it stayed in Measure M under the county pool.
Right.
So it's held harmless.
If I may clarify, do you mean using some money from Go Sonoma to fund the gap for some projects in Measure M? That's what you meant, or something else, you know? And the other question I have, in fact, you know, about the staff, you know, time. You mentioned starting 2026, 27, it will be fully charged to Go Sonoma? That's what you,
Specific for the Measure M admin category, so we would transition all Measure M admin category, which for Measure M is 1% of the measure, to the Go Sonoma admin category, which is 1% off the top of Go Sonoma. So it's.
is that fair, you know, for the Go Sonoma, you know, because still Measure M, they have some, you know, projects and they consume staff time, you know.
We have a number of funding sources that we charge time to, and as we draw down the actual administration and the measure, it makes sense to end our use of the Measure M admin since we're not doing full oversight of the sales tax collection. And that's why we're moving over to Go Sonoma measure. For Go Sonoma, we don't have a lot of sales tax in hand yet, and so we're using fiscal 25-26 to build up a little reserve in the admin category so that we can start drawing against it in fiscal 26-27. That's why we're pulling from Measure M first for admin and then going to Go Sonoma in fiscal 26-27.
But the question in the future, how will you split the staff time charges between the two measures, you know?
We have specific projects in Measure M, for example, as I mentioned earlier, 101 that we still will charge time to. And as staff have Measure M related measures, we may have other charges that we do to our general admin funds, to our state transportation improvement planning program monitoring. It really depends on the project and the activity, but Measure M is also really being extended by Go Sonoma. Go Sonoma is a continuation of Measure M, and so we see them as one and the same, essentially. Yes, they are separate measures, but it's still a continuation of the measure, and we feel that those charges would be appropriate.
Well explained. Good job. Thank you. All right. In the interest of keeping us moving along.
Thank you.
Bratton, did you conclude or you?
Nope, that's it.
Good job.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you for your explanation too.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, just a note for the record, in your packet, there are a number of financial exhibits from our financial consultant HDL that are providing you a little preview of what the board will be seeing next month in our budgets for fiscal year 25-26. As we've all seen over the last few months, the economy is a little uncertain, and so they are predicting a 4% decrease this current fiscal year in sales tax revenue. Next year, it will be kind of flat and then returning to around 2.8 to 3% in fiscal 26-27. That may change depending on what side of the bed the president gets out of or how the economy changes over the next year or so, but that's our most recent forecast on page 61 of your packet.
Or Mark buys some more cars. I mean, you step it up a little bit.
They
will
all
you?
get towed, so I need to buy this.
That's revenue
Thank
generating.
you. Great comments from the committee too. Thank you, Dennis. Appreciate it.
Thank you. for
Thank
your
you,
service.
guys. Shauna, you're back up? The evaluation criteria.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Oh, I went to the wrong place. So this item before you is a preview of our upcoming funding program. You know that in 2021, SCTA recognized several different transportation funding sources and tried to consolidate all of those things into one call for projects for all of those different sources. As I mentioned previously, each one of the jurisdictions was asked to provide their top 5 priorities. And then when they submitted those to us, we evaluated each one of those projects and then tried to determine which ones best fit the goals of SCTA and the Bay Area Transportation Plan and our own CTP and so forth. So we had developed these criteria or very similar criteria, mostly these criteria for that last round, cycle 1 of the funding program. And so we, as the timeline played out last time and will be very similar this time. We will do the call for projects in June. We will receive all of the applications by August. And then our first intent is to evaluate and try to determine which ones are the best candidates for the State Transportation Improvement Program. And then the rest of them will have these criteria applied to them so that we can score them. And it is our intent to develop evaluation teams that are made up of SCTCA staff and jurisdictional staff. We will make sure that jurisdiction staff aren't evaluating their own projects. However, we would like to have outside eyes so that we are making sure that we are being fully inclusive of the available expertise that we can use to evaluate these projects. So with that being said, these criteria are very, very similar to the criteria that we used during the first funding program cycle. And we are trying to maintain something that we can use against what we think MTC is going to provide for us as far as requirements for the One Bay Area Grant Cycle 4, also known as OBAG 4. So we have developed these criteria. We have brought them to the Technical Advisory Committee. They are going to yourselves, and they will also be going to the board. And then we will take we are accepting comments and any kind of input you'd like to provide us on these criteria now. We will try to incorporate and or evaluate the comments and questions that we get, and then bring back a full call for projects in June. With that, I would be happy to take any questions you have.
I'll bet there'll be a couple. Dennis, you were up quick, very fast on that hand raise.
First of all, great job and no question about the criteria. So my question was, again, can you clarify who the evaluators are?
So last time we used almost all staff. We broke it into teams because there were like 100 projects. We had a lot of projects that had to be evaluated. So we broke it into, I think it was 4 evaluation teams and they were made up of 2 or 3 people of our entire staff.
Both SCCA and RCPA.
Yes, sorry, I did not make that part clear. And this time we are hoping to have evaluation teams of at least 3 people with hopefully, if we can get enough interest, at least 1 outside person on each team.
Thank you.
You bet.
Jerry.
I got confused when the name change occurred and I'm going, am I looking at the right thing? First of all, yeah, I really like the method that you use, but I got concerned when I got to question number 2 on mode shift, because all of the points talked about need, and mostly I care about mode shift over everything else because of climate reasons. And there's no criteria that says, and by the way, would this project actually achieve the mode shift? All the score points are based on need, not based on what staff thinks the effectiveness of the project would be.
Yeah, so it's very hard for us to quantify, will this project actually do what it is? And there's whole economic analysis and cost benefit analysis that are done to say $1 billion transit project, or this $1 billion highway project would do X. And so we are using the scoring criteria based on a number of other scoring criteria. This is one that we borrowed from the State Active Transportation Program. And that program really is showing what is the need in the area. Is there no sidewalks? Is there no bike lanes? If it's a traffic project, is there a need for additional lanes? Is there a need for improved bus or rail facilities? And so quantifying that need with counts before and after is something that we can look at, whether it's modeling. There's different ways you could do it, but all of them, it's really hard to have a black box of saying this project would do X. Like Andy's presentation earlier, they didn't know what was going to happen when they opened the Petaluma North Station. They're actually having higher ridership at the Petaluma Downtown Station too. And so all we can do is do our best guess of what the project will do if you build it. But starting with what do you need is where we're looking at right now.
But because, working with the MTC, we do an awful lot of surveys. And often the surveys are oriented towards if this existed, would you use it kind of things? And I didn't see that here. And that's the part that I was concerned about. You know, we'll build a sidewalk, okay, but nobody walks there. And you don't know because there's no sidewalk yet. But there's got to be some method of finding out if we spend the money on this, are we going to achieve anything? Even though people have the need, they may continue to have the need because they're not going to take advantage of it.
Right. And like you said, there may be a project in a rural area, let's say the community of Graydon out
Yeah.
on 116, where there's not a lot of sidewalks. You put in a sidewalk, people might start using there, but not as much if you put in a sidewalk in downtown Santa Rosa.
Right.
That's why we have other questions in the criteria they're looking at. What's the actual location? Is it the center of downtown Santa Rosa? It's really dense, and so you probably will have a lot of people walking and riding. You build something, or is it in a very rural area? Let's say Skag Springs Road in the middle of nowhere in the northwest part of the county.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I may.
Yep.
Um,
Running a little short on time, guys.
Yeah, so I think it's too soon to do this, but we're gonna want to look back at the past approved projects to see if the criteria are in fact being delivered.
Yeah.
The projects haven't actually been rolled out in most cases yet, or they're in early stages. So it's probably premature to score them against that. But conceptually, it makes sense for us to have that perspective here at this body. And I know you guys are thinking about that, but do you have any early feedback on the criteria? Did you change anything? It looks pretty similar to what I recall reviewing last year. Do you feel like some of them are either redundant or overweighted, or like, for example, you've got at the top of the list, benefit to equity priority communities. And if I look at, for example, our City of Sonoma citywide safety, bicycle and pedestrian improvements fact sheet, it talks about benefits in the city limits that are claimed to benefit the equity priority community, which is actually pretty far away. Some of those people may ride their bicycles through that area and walk through that area. But how was that kind of issue scored? Are we getting what we are actually hoping for? That's the kind of thing we could look back retrospectively at, but I'm curious if you have any early stage feedback on the criteria and maybe have many changes as a result of that.
Well, we have exactly one project in construction. So I don't have a lot. It is a little premature for me to be able to make those kinds of determinations, but you are right that we are aware of it, and we are always thinking of ways to go back and evaluate and try to determine if there's a better way to do this. As I said, we haven't changed the criteria here. The majority of the changes refer to local road safety plans, and whether or not, because that's going to be a new requirement. All of our jurisdictions, or most of our jurisdictions, had local road safety plans, but now it's been almost 5 years, and MTC is going to want you to have an updated local road safety plan if it's more than 5 years old. So while not all of them will be expired by the time they apply for OBAG, by the time this part is done, they'll need a new. So we're trying to track as many things as possible in a really complicated application. And MTC is always rolling out new requirements because we have a lot of these other factors that are required to be addressed in in Plan Bay Area 2050 plus. So there's a lot of new information coming out that we haven't incorporated into this yet about transportation bus transportation networks and transit oriented communities that those policies are getting finalized, but they haven't been finalized yet. And those are going to need to impact this too. So we're trying to stay as current as possible. But as I said, we don't have the data that you were talking about just yet.
And as Shauna mentioned, once MTC adopts their OBAG 4 guidance in January 2026, we may have to revisit this criteria and do some tweaking to it. I just want to call the committee's attention. So the summary table on page 73 of your packet lists all of the different category totals. It adds up to 200 points. In the last cycle, it only added 185 points. And so what we did was we added 5 points to the collision and safety question, 5 points to the public participation and community support question, and then 5 points to the employment opportunities and access to training and education question. Those are the major changes from last cycle, but those are the three categories we thought that have most.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch all three of those. You said the first one was
So it's the
Collision.
collisions and safety,
Number three.
number 3, public participation, and community support, number 4, and number 10, which is the employment opportunities and access to training and education.
great.
So those are the three categories where we thought we could do a little points bump for those and put a higher emphasis on them.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
So if you have input on these criteria, I would love if you could get it to me by the 14th of May. That's
Okay.
just a little over 2 weeks from now, but hopefully that gives you enough time to look them over. And if you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to me. But if you have comments that you would like us to consider, then if you could get them to me by that date, that would be great.
And just to note, as Shauna mentioned, we will be taking this item to the STA board on the 12th. At that meeting, we'll be kind of more focusing on encouraging the jurisdictions to start talking about their project priorities with their staff and the public, maybe taking a governing body action to prioritize what their top 5 or top 10, in the case of the county and the city, are ahead of our call for projects, so they can start doing some early design efforts, community engagement, and start getting these projects applications going, since they would take some time to pull together.
Great. Thanks, David. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're at announcements. I know Mark's got one. I've got 2 quick ones that I'd like to throw out there, and we just had our public officials night. David was able to make an appearance. Hopefully you had a nice steak dinner. It's basically to thank and foster relationships with our public officials. I don't think they get a whole lot of thank you for pushing a lot of these projects out and getting them built and so forth. And that's what we do. And so it was interesting watching Eddie talk about the roundabout in Windsor. That was our Bridge Award project in 2024. Cool little project. Railroad tracks go right through the middle of the roundabout, and it's all lit up at night. And Windsor was so damn proud of that project. They loved getting it recognized. And then this last one that we just did, Tom, I was thinking of you guys, was the Chase Street Bridge in Sonoma, which was the largest federal allocation of funds in the for a public works project in the history of Sonoma, which I think it was Congressman Thompson was included in the video, and he mentioned that. It was shocking to me because it's only a $2.8 million project. But you know, I'm looking at this Chase Bridge. It's like 10 feet long, $3 million, and it went back to your $17,000 a foot for a sidewalk or whatever.
$1,700 for a foot.
I know, but this stuff is expensive. Anyways, that's my 2 quick announcements. Mark has.
So I want to make one, as a material supplier here locally of aggregates, soil products for both consumer and construction needs, and compost and all those things. The cost to build, in my opinion, cost locally for a local producing company like mine, and I have 3 locations. I only produce in Sonoma County. Our costs have gone up 9 to 15% in the past few years. It's costs that are what I would consider non-regional. So concrete, if you buy a yard of 6-stack concrete, 10 years ago, it was $145 a cubic yard delivered. Now it's like $190. So you look at the percentage of growth in certain parts of the construction trades, it's grown a lot more than that. For me to buy a new Caterpillar tractor for my operations, in general, they're about 30% more expensive than they were just 3 years ago. So what I consider non-regional expenses, all of us are property and casualty insurance rates. Those are non-regional. Those are being dictated from Chicago or some other, hub-centric place. So it's unfortunate, but to John's point, it's death by 1,000 paper cuts on every little incremental cost. But if you come to my stores and you want a yard of compost, I promise you it's not that much more expensive than it was 3 years ago.
because it's regional and it's competitive and that's just what it is.
Thank you. Rick?
I just wanted to let the committee know that I will be unable to attend the next meeting in person. And I've let the staff know about this. I will try to Zoom in, but of course I will be an informal attendee at that point.
All right. Thank you, Jerry.
It's not an announcement, but actually a request. I keep getting calls and people contacting me asking for updates on mascots. And mascots is still hidden. It'd be great to have a presentation on mascots so we can know where it's going and what the extent is. What the challenges have been so far. So I can pass the information along.
Well, you ask and you shall receive.
We keep getting closer, but it has definitely been delayed in terms of, getting a set of recommendations that are ready to come out to the public. I am hopeful that we will have that very soon and possibly even be able to bring something in May or June to this committee. So this committee is definitely on our list, priority list for engagement, and we will, work with the chair to.
And so you understand, I'm actually getting requests from people outside of our county, outside of this area, because they're looking at, are we able to start solving some of the problems here? And if we could do it, maybe they could do it too.
Yes, we've also been talking about, talking with the regional network management team and committees. So
On that
I
committee.
know that there's, I'm aware there's a lot of interest, and
Yeah.
I agree that if we can pull something off here, will be a fantastic example for other areas.
Thanks.
Excellent. And the last announcement is Warriors Dubs going against Houston Rockets tonight. Go Warriors. Mission accomplished.
Go on, get out of there.
I don't know.
Yeah, I heard